To speak to us about the importance of the media in this fight against misinformation and disinformation, we're joined by the founder of Africa Check and the co-director of the Chevening Africa Media Freedom Fellowship, Peter Cunliffe-Jones. Mr. Cunliffe-Jones, thank you for being with us. And by the way, Africa Check, I think, is doing wonderful things. Congratulations to you. This was in response to, of course, misinformation, and it's all around us. The latest theories, COVID linked to 5G, vaccines are going to put chips in people. We know it's all around us, but why? How did we get here?
Well, I think it's always been around us. It's just that and that goes back hundreds of years. You can find examples through the history books hundreds of years ago, even thousands of years ago, of political leaders, of others misinforming in order to persuade people of something that isn't true, but helps them. In recent years, what you've seen, though, is a new layer of communication. So all social media, online media, this is something that wasn't available 25, 30 years ago to the vast majority of people. So there has been a very significant increase in the amount of communication in general, a good, reliable, solid information, but also a lot of misinformation. But it comes through multiple channels, and it's far more complex than is often portrayed.
Yeah. And I remember predictions years ago that quality journalism would rise, actually, because people would want journalists to separate the true from the untrue, the verified from the unverified. But then we saw in the US election, and now it just seems like people believe what's coming into their social media feeds. Are we as humans just a lot more gullible and ready to access any information, regardless of the quality, than we thought years ago?
So I mean, we know from many years of social psychology, experimental psychology, we all have biases. Everybody has a bias to believe information that seems to confirm our pre-existing view. So if we see claims about a politician that we don't like, negative claims about that politician, we're more inclined to believe that, even if when you look at it for more than a few moments, it's quite obvious that the information is untrue. Those things are innate in all of us, but there are ways, and there are a lot of people who search to check information, for reliable sources of information, and there are ways that the traditional media, the social media platforms can nudge people to try to check the accuracy of the information that they're taking on board.
So you're no longer executive director of Africa Check, but you are an advisor to an international fact-checking network. So that is becoming more and more important. So it sounds very nice. Are things we've learned here in Africa being adopted elsewhere? Are you taking the learnings?
Yes, I mean, so there are now more than 100 organizations around the world, everywhere from Indonesia to the Philippines, through Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, that have signed up to an international code of principles for fact-checking. There are 200 or 300 organizations carrying out fact-checking. More than 100 have now already signed up to this code of principles, and a lot of that was built around what the team at Africa Check developed, sort of principles around how you identify reliable sources, how you establish the methodology of doing fact-checking, transparency around who is funding your work, the people involved, and so on, the financing, and making sure that obviously all organizations, whether it's Africa Check or the Washington Post or whoever it might be, will make mistakes from time to time. So making sure that you correct that, because the ultimate goal is not audience, it's to get the information right, to get
Yeah.
And that's been the drive of Africa Check, and that's the drive now of dozens and dozens and dozens of organizations worldwide.
Some people still not using those resources, and many saying, look, what Twitter does, what Facebook does, is so important about telling people about the information they're receiving on their feeds. What do you think of the efforts there among with those two organizations?
So they have in the last 5 years, the social media platforms have made a start to recognize the problem of misinformation on their platforms. And obviously there are broader problems around hate speech and other forms of other forms of problematic content, but they recognize that the problem around misinformation, so-called fake news, on their platforms. They are working with organizations such as Africa Check, Dabawa in Nigeria, Ghana Fact in Ghana, and ZimFact in Zimbabwe, and others. And they are working with them to try to identify misinformation on their platforms. Twitter doesn't do the same, but it has started to try to alert its users to problems with content. What they're doing, though, when you look at the resources that they have, I think many would feel is insufficient still.
All right, let's leave it there and follow what happens in the next year before the next World Press Freedom Day. Thank you for that update, the founder of Africa Check, Peter Cunliffe-Jones.